Biker ripped the waitress's shirt. What he saw froze the whole bar. The jukebox was blaring, the pool balls clattered, and the thick smell of fried food and beer hung in the air. It was just another Friday night at Murphy's Roadhouse, the kind of bar where leather jackets outnumbered dress shirts and laughter was usually a little too loud. Everyone knew the waitresses by name, but tonight, all eyes would land on one woman, Emily. Emily was young but carried herself with a quiet maturity, moving swiftly between tables with trays of drinks balanced effortlessly. She wore the standard black T-shirt with the bar's logo, jeans that had seen better days, and a smile that made even the toughest bikers soften for a moment. But there was something about her, a guardedness in her eyes, a tension in her shoulders, that most people overlooked. The trouble started when a group of rowdy bikers roared into the bar, their engines growling outside before they stomped inside like they owned the place. Their leader, a tall, broad man with a scar across his jaw named Vince, immediately demanded a round of shots. Emily approached their table, polite as always, though her hands shook slightly as she set down the glasses. "Careful, sweetheart, don't spill." Vince smirked, eyeing her in a way that made her shift uncomfortably. She ignored him, moving on to the next table, but Vince wasn't finished. A few minutes later, as Emily passed by with another tray, Vince reached out and tugged at her shirt, trying to be playful, in front of his friends. His rough pull ripped the fabric straight down the shoulder seam. Gasps filled the bar as the laughter died. But the moment wasn't funny anymore, because underneath Emily's torn shirt was not a tank top or lace, but a thin white hospital brace wrapping tightly across her chest and shoulder, the kind worn after surgeries or severe injuries. The bar fell into silence. Emily froze, her eyes wide with panic, as if she had been exposed in more ways than one. "What the?" one of the regulars whispered. Emily clutched her shirt closed and backed away, but Vince suddenly looked uneasy. His smirk vanished as his eyes darted from the brace to Emily's trembling face. "Emily," whispered Janet, another waitress, but rushing over to shield her. But Emily's voice cracked through the silence. Don't touch me, please." The bar didn't understand. Not yet, but within minutes, the truth began to spill, as if the ripped shirt had ripped away her silence too. Emily had survived something most of them couldn't even imagine. Just 6 months earlier, she had been hit by a drunk driver while walking home from work at a different diner. The accident shattered her collarbone, cracked ribs, and left deep scars down her side. Her recovery had been brutal. Months of surgeries, physical therapy, and nights crying into her pillow, wondering if she'd ever be whole again. She wore the brace because her body still wasn't ready to stand fully on its own. "I came here," Emily whispered, her voice trembling, "because I needed to work again. I needed to prove I'm not broken. And now—" She stopped, choking on the words. No one moved. Not a single glass clinked. Even the jukebox seemed quieter. It was the old man at the corner of the bar, a retired vet named Carl, who stood first. He walked toward Emily, placed his leather jacket around her shoulders, and turned to face Vince. His voice was low, but it carried through the room like thunder. "You think tearing a shirt makes you tough? That's not toughness. That's cowardice. This girl's tougher than you'll ever be. She survived what most men wouldn't." The bar erupted in murmurs of agreement. One by one, people stood glaring at Vince and his crew. Vince shifted uncomfortably, his friends sinking in their seats as the weight of the room turned against them. Emily's hands were still shaking, but when she saw the entire bar rallying around her, something inside her shifted. She wasn't just the girl who had been broken, or the waitress trying to blend into the background. She was a survivor, and for the first time in months, she didn't feel alone. The owner of Murphy's, a broad-shouldered woman named Sharon, marched forward and pointed toward the door. "Out, now, and don't come back." The bikers grumbled but didn't fight. They knew the fight had already been lost. With the entire bar glaring at them, they shuffled out into the night, their earlier swagger nowhere to be found. Silence hung in the air after the door slammed shut. Emily sat down at the bar, pulling the jacket tighter around herself, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to make a scene." Sharon leaned across the bar, her eyes fierce but kind. "Honey, you didn't make a scene. He did. You don't have to hide your scars. Not here." The rest of the night, customers made sure Emily knew she was more than her injuries. Tips piled up on her tray, People offered hugs and kind words, and Carl even said he'd walk her home at closing so she wouldn't be alone. For Emily, it was more than just one night at a bar. It was the first time she realized that healing wasn't just about bones and scars. It was about allowing others to see her pain and realizing she wasn't defined by it. And for everyone else in Murphy's Roadhouse, that night became a story they would never forget. The night a careless biker tried to humiliate a waitress, but instead revealed the kind of strength that freezes a whole room, reminding them all that real toughness comes not from fists or fear, but from surviving, standing, and still finding the courage to smile. Murphy's Roadhouse wasn't the kind of bar where things stayed quiet for long. Every night was a storm of laughter, the crack of pool cues, and the jingle of coins dropped into the jukebox. But on this night, everything changed with one careless tug. Emily, balancing drinks as she always did, walked past Vince's table, ignoring his teasing smirk. He was the kind of man who lived for attention. The louder the better. He tugged at her shirt to get a laugh from his biker crew. But instead of laughter, the sound of ripping fabric echoed across the bar. When her shoulder brace was exposed, silence swallowed the room whole. The bikers blinked in confusion. The regulars froze in their seats. And Emily, she looked like she had been stripped of armor she fought hard to build. But no one knew the full story yet. Not the endless nights of pain she endured, not the way she pushed herself to work despite her trembling body. To them, she was just a quiet waitress with tired eyes, until that moment. Vince muttered, trying to laugh it off. "Hey, relax, it's just a joke." But Carl, the old vet, cut him short. "Does that look like a joke to you?" His voice cracked with rage, and everyone turned to look at Emily's fragile frame shaking in the corner, clutching her shirt. What froze the whole bar wasn't just the brace. It was the story it told without words that Emily was carrying scars most people couldn't see. And for the first time, she couldn't hide them anymore. After the bikers were thrown out, the bar's mood shifted. The noise never returned to what it had been. People spoke in hushed tones, their eyes drifting toward Emily as she sat at the far end, wrapped in Carl's jacket. Janet sat beside her, whispering, "You don't owe anyone an explanation." But Emily shook her head. Her tears spilled faster than her words. "No, if I keep hiding, then Vince wins. People need to know I'm more than this brace. I need to say it out loud." The room listened as Emily shared the weight she had been carrying for months. She told them about the drunk driver who left her broken on the pavement, about the nights in the hospital when she prayed just to wake up breathing, about the endless battle to get her body moving again, one painful step at a time.